Welcome Marines, Captain DiPietro here from the Marine Corps Detachment in Fort Benning. Today we're going to start a three-part lesson series on fitness reports, and the first lesson is going to be on the MRO W, so your Marine Reported On worksheet. Now, one thing before we get started on this is the actual fitness report process begins with initial counseling. If you are unfamiliar with that or how to do it, then please take a look at the Leadership Development Seminar Lesson 4, which is on counseling, and it'll give you a little bit of insight on how to conduct it, maybe some tips and tricks to better conduct your initial counselings, your midterm counselings, and so on. So take a look at that. But today we're going to start the process at the MRO W because that's where the performance evaluation system begins. Overall, I'm going to go over some tips and tricks of MRO Ws. Go through what the MROW looks like and note some common mistakes in the MROW process that I've witnessed over the years, and then we'll talk about a few other tips that may help you or your Marines in the future either develop or have them develop their MROWs. Full disclosure, only been in the Marine Corps for a few years, so I'm sure there's some folks out there that have a lot more experience than I do, but it's definitely something that I take pride in, is in teaching Marines, both the younger enlisted Marines, the young sergeants who haven't done fitness reports before, and the lieutenants who haven't written fitness reports before, because fitness reports, in my opinion, are one of the best tools that we have in the Marine Corps to really take care of Marines. We talk about taking care of Marines a lot, and fitness reports is one of those ways, because the fitness report is going to help them get promoted or possibly not get promoted, which is a really good aspect of them too that I think is underutilized, where we really need to recognize where Marines are falling short, and utilizing the fitness report is a good way to do that. So, all that being said, let's get started on the MROW. So remember, MROW stands for the Marine Reported On worksheet. So the first tip I want to talk about is always have one open. And what I mean by that is when you go on to APES, so the Online Performance Evaluation System, you can open an MROW for yourself. I always recommend to my Marines that they open one either when the second they get promoted to sergeant or the second that a report has been closed. That way that you can go in there and start taking notes of all the things you accomplish. Another way to do that is if you have maybe a brag sheet where you keep notes of all the things you do. So let's say you went to an exercise and you completed it well, successfully, whatever you did during the exercise, take some notes. That way when you're going back through and writing your MROW to submit it for a fitness report, you don't forget some of those things that you did. Definitely include everything and all the possibilities that you might put into a fitness report for the build accomplishments, and you might have too many, so just take them out. But we definitely would rather have a note of all the things you accomplished, and we can kind of stack those up to the most important. So that's one of my tips, is always have one open. I'm completing a fitness report right now, and once it becomes processed, I'm going to open one immediately. That way we can keep track of some of the things that I've accomplished during the reporting period. So that's one tip we want to start with, is just always have one open. Next, we're going to do the walkthrough. So I've drawn up here sort of a mock MROW. It's not exactly how it looks like on the computer, but it's going to serve the purpose that we need to. So it's broken down by sections. You have A, B, and C, and then the other sections. So we'll just go in order of what you're going to see on the computer and how you're going to fill it out. And the things up here that are highlighted in red, or they're really just written in red up on the whiteboard, these are the things where I see a lot of mistakes from the Marines. So we're going to take a little extra time on some of those. So starting with administrative information, when you open a fitness report, most of this is going to be in there for you. So it's going to automatically put your name, your DOD ID number, and your grade up there. It's also going to automatically put your date of rank, but this is the first one that I wrote in red, specifically for promotion reports. So if you're having a grade change report, make sure that you read through the PES and identify the exact date that's supposed to be in there, which could be different based off of if it's a frocking or if it's a scheduled report or a scheduled promotion. So make sure you have an accurate date of rank on there. It's going to be for the previous rank that the Marine is currently in, not the one they're getting promoted to. So for example, if you have a Marine who's getting promoted from Staff Sergeant to Gunnery Sergeant, you're not going to put the new date of rank, because the new date of rank is what's going to be the to date on the report. You want to put the last date of rank, so when he got promoted to Staff Sergeant, not his future date of rank for a gunny. So just make sure you're clear on that one, and that's a mistake I see a lot. And then just ensure whatever your unit SOP is for your primary and your billet MOS, A lot of times they're going to be the same. Sometimes they might be different. Remember, rules for student statuses might change where the Billet MOS might be NA or not applicable. So just make sure you read through it and put that properly. So then line 2 of administrative information, same thing with a lot of line 1. This is going to come in automatically. Just note that with the unit description, it might be something in the system that the RS or RO doesn't want. So just make sure you clarify that before you input your unit description differently than what it's automatically uploaded for. All right, line 3 is one that we have a huge issue with, and that's going to be your occasion and your from and to date. So for the occasion, when you go in on the computer, there's going to be that little plus box that you can open up and see all of the occasions. Just remember that there are multiple occasions with a lot of fitness reports, and they're listed in the precedence of which one should be listed. So when you click on that box, it's going to have all the possible reports up there. If you have 2 reports or 3 reports occasions at the same time, whatever the highest one on the list is, that's the one that's going to end up in the occasion. So for example, if you have an annual report and the annual is amazingly on the same day that someone is transferring a unit, then that transfer is going to supersede the annual report. That's just one example. It can be a bunch of different ones. So just make sure you have the proper occasion in there. And that's going to be really good because when people look through their records or their OMPF or master brief sheet, they're going to see sort of a flow, right? So they got an annual in March. Let's say we have sergeant. So he got an annual in March. Okay, he got promoted to staff sergeant. So now he's got a grade change in June, and then he PCS'd in December. So now he's got a transfer report. So just keep that in mind. Make sure you have the proper occasion written down. And then from and to dates. So I can't tell you how many times I've gotten MRO Ws from my Marines, and the from and to dates don't match up to what it's supposed to be, or specifically the from dates aren't anywhere close to the last report's to date. And so now you have to do a little bit of math or kind of see what went wrong, or the worst case scenario, they didn't get a fitness report from their last event or last RS, so now you've got to scramble and figure that out for your Marines. So take a good look at the from and the to dates and make sure that you as the Marine, so you're the one writing the MRO W, make sure you are properly putting the dates in there so that you're not leaving your RS to guess or anything. If you come across it where you're looking at your fitness reports and you have a gap, so 30 days or more, but really we don't want any time in between fitness reports. If you have that gap from your last to date to your current from date, then try to talk with your RS and figure out if either you're supposed to move that from date back to marry up with that last to date, or you can get an additional fitness report, maybe a non-observed, to cover that time. A bunch of different scenarios out there. So just make sure we're not leaving any date gaps in there for your Marines or for yourself. Everything else should be pretty normal. The type is typically pretty easy, and then the duty assignment, just make sure it's an accurate depiction of what your actual role is. So if you're a platoon sergeant, make sure it says platoon sergeant and not just tanker, right? Or if you're company commander and it says like officer on there, well, that doesn't really tell me what you're doing. So make sure you have a proper duty assignment on there for yourself. All right, moving on down, we're going to go into the qual and the PFT and the CFT section. This is another one where we get a lot. The biggest issue that I've seen with MROWs in the qualification, that's referring to your rifle and pistol qual and the PFT and CFT, is that Marines will put in information from previous reporting periods. So the biggest key here is this is only going to be filled out for that reporting period that's actually being written on. So if my period is from January to June, say I'm writing a report in June, and I didn't run a CFT from January to June, well, my CFT is going to say not required because we're not required to run a CFT from January to June. Same thing with rifle pistol qual. So if you didn't shoot during that 6-month reporting period, so if I didn't shoot pistol between January and June for that reporting period, then I'm going to put not required because I didn't shoot it. So just ensure that you're not putting all this stuff down. It's very frustrating. It's simple, but it's frustrating as a RS to go on there and get, oh, I shot expert 3 years ago. Well, that's great. That wasn't during the reporting period. So now I've got to go through and change it. And that sort of shows me as a RS that you may or may not know what you're doing as the MRO. Then moving on, same thing with height and weight during that reporting period. And then I put a star on this one, the F and M. Everyone talks about this, put an F on your fit rep or M on your fit rep. Just make sure that you as the MRO, so this is specifically for gunnery sergeants, right? You as the MRO put what you want, right? If you accidentally put F and you didn't want F, then if your RS isn't doing a good job of counseling you and they don't really know you very well, then they might leave it there, and that's not going to be what you want. So ensure that you put what you want, and then as the RS, remember we're supposed to put a directed comment or some sort of acknowledgement that, hey, this Marine is better suited for first sergeant, for master sergeant, here's the reasons why. So make sure we don't overlook that aspect for our gunnery sergeants. All right, duty preference is the one all my Marines talk about all the time. I guess they think like, oh, I'll put duty preferences in, that's what I'm gonna get, and certainly put what you want down, but this is really just something to kind of show your people or show in your future boards, like this is where I want to be or where I want to go. So definitely take it seriously and put what you want and get as specific as possible, so you have the ability to put in specific units on there with, you know, the MCCs. So go ahead and put what you want. If there's a specific battalion you want to go to, like if you want to go to Victor 1-3, then put in Victor 1-3, 1st Battalion, 3rd Marines, because that's where I really want to go. So put it on there, but don't think that if you put it on there, that's exactly where you're going. But definitely put what you want. And then your RS info. So it didn't highlight in red because typically everyone gets the RS info correct. If you don't know who your RS is, then I blame your RS for lack of counseling. But the thing that kills me with RS info is how many times I get a question or an email about, you know, what's your last 5 or your EDIPI. Just go to MOL and type in the locator, the name, and you can look up their EDIPI that way. So again, something simple that can be accomplished pretty easily. So RS info, last 5, click it. It'll automatically put in there. Make sure you put the proper billet description. So if you're a sergeant, put your platoon commander in as the billet description for the RS. All right, that covers the administrative information. Nothing too strenuous, pretty easy. And again, a lot of it is filled automatically for you. Moving on to section B, so billet description and recommended adjustments for your billet description. The thing I put in red here is that it comes from your initial counseling. If you don't get initial counseling, that's a problem. Your RS owes you that. They should be doing that. But you more than likely have gotten initial counseling. In that initial counseling, it should say something about your billet description. So what I prefer to do on my initial counselings is I write out word for word what I expect their billet description to be on their MRO W. So all they got to do is copy paste from their initial counseling into the billet description. Then there's recommended adjustments for a reason. So maybe you have a collateral billet that you want to put in there, or you've talked through with your RS and say, this is part of my job too that isn't mentioned in the billet description, and you want to add it in. By all means, do that. Just make sure you kind of make the RS aware that you put it in there so that he or she can adjust it accordingly. So just know this should come almost word for word, if not word for word, from the initial counseling. Then moving on to section C, this is really the bulk of your MRO W and where you're gonna, do a lot of the work is on that section C, because most of this again is kind of done for you. Section B is done for you. Section C is really where you as the MRO, the Marine Reporter on, gets a chance to put your 2 cents in. So a couple of recommendations for major accomplishments. Number 1 is fill the whole thing out. All right, and this is where, again, I started in the beginning saying that we always want to have one open. You should be filling this out sort of as the reporting period goes. So we'll use from January to June again. So starting in January, I have my MRO W open, and let's say I did an exercise in February. I'm going to go into my MRO W and type in some stuff. Hey, I successfully completed realistic urban training exercise in support of the 13th MEU. Whatever else you want to put there for your accomplishment. And then in March, I went on another exercise. Hey, accomplished ITX, 3 Tech 21, and no problem, safely executed, etc. And then by the end of the reporting period, I'm going to have all these notes and bullets to kind of put, and then I can sort of arrange them and organize them appropriately in my section C. So fill the whole thing out, put as much stuff in there as you want. There is nothing more frustrating when I'm writing a fitness report as an RS to get a section C that has nothing in it, or one line that says something like, I was in charge of X section for the last 6 months. And then you as the RS are looking at it like, well, that's great. Hopefully you as the RS did a good job of sort of keeping track and supervising so you know some of the accomplishments of that Marine. But to me, if you as the Marine Reporter on are not willing to put in some effort into section C, then why should I do the same thing? So just make sure you fill it out and force your RS to change it up. So this is where I wrote brag in here as one of those topics. Just brag about yourself. So If you think you accomplished something great, then put it in there, make it sound good. It might not be as fantastic as you think it was, but your RS is the one to decide that. So make it sound awesome, and then force them to sort of change it to change how great it actually was. And if they didn't change it and you made it sound great, then awesome, it sounds great in there. So brag about yourself. This is your chance. RS will have all the opportunity to change it however they want to, but if they don't and they decide to just copy paste it and move forward with it, and you did a good job bragging about yourself, then that's what your boards are going to see. So keep that in mind. Fill out your whole section C. So then at the bottom of your MRO W, you're going to have these other sections here, and it's going to be the PME, self-education, and then your other kind of awards, community service section. Similar to section C, try to fill those out. You may not have a whole lot to put in those. I often find myself, especially in shorter reporting periods, maybe I didn't accomplish too much or didn't have the chance to do anything too much outside of my work. But as much as possible, fill those things out, and similar to section C, like force your RS to know that information. If you don't tell them, they might not know it. Again, hopefully they do a good job of supervising and counseling and checking in on you so they know what you've kind of accomplished, but maybe you don't get to see them very often. Maybe you're sort of detached from your RS. So this is your chance to kind of let them know, hey, I accomplished 6 credits worth of college courses in the last 6 months. Great. I accomplished my non-resident PME on MarineNet. That's awesome. Like, that's a huge plus. That might come in, that might be an extra bullet point on your fitness report, or your PME section might go from B to a C because you told me, hey, I finished this non-res. So definitely fill these things out. And the same with the awards or other community service, things like that. Just take a note of everything. It may or may not help you. Probably can't hurt, so why not put some stuff in there? But especially with the awards, that's going to come into play, because if you got something maybe minor that your RS wasn't aware of, maybe you got a meritorious mass for doing something and they just didn't know about it. Hopefully that's not the case, but then they can change their report to a commendatory report. So put as much stuff in there as you think is applicable, and it may have a positive impact on you. So that's kind of what you're going to do. And then once you're done completing all the information, you're going to forward that to your RS, and they're going to make the finished report from that. All right, so we've completed our MRO W walkthrough, and now it's time to submit. So the reason I put that on as a bullet point is make sure you're doing this in a timely manner, similar to what we talked about before. Hopefully you and the RS have communicated, you've done counseling, and you know. But really your MRO W should be sort of submitted close to the end of the reporting period, because after that point there's not a whole lot to add. I always ask my Marines that the due date for their MRO W is the end of the reporting period. So if I have sergeants, for example, then they owe me their MRO W by March 31st. That will give me a week or two to complete the RS portion of the fitness report, which then gives 2 to 3 weeks for the RO to finish his or her portion of the fitness report. So just do it in a timely manner. You don't want to be the person that waits till the last second before it's due to submit it to the RS, and then you kind of screw them time-wise. But that all should be taken care of during initial counseling as well. And then last, what's next? So a lot of folks, if especially for the younger Marines, if you haven't been involved with this process, you may not know what happens. So from here, what happens is the MRO W goes to your RS. So it goes to your reporting senior, and then me as the reporting senior, I take that MRO W, I transfer it into fitness report format, and then I can start looking through what you provided me. So specifically in section C, I can say, okay, here's all the things that they gave me for their accomplishments. Yep, that's a good one. That's a good point. All right, he made this one sound a little bit better than it really was. And this one, he really didn't do a whole lot for it, so I'm going to delete that completely. And he forgot about this that he did that was a really good accomplishment. I'm going to add that in there for him. So that's what you're going to get done for you as the RO by the RS once they put it into fitness report format. And then they're going to take all this information, and then they're going to start writing up their next section, which is going to be that section I, along with the grades, which we'll get into in lesson 2 of fitness reports. So that's going to complete the MRO W process. Of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave comments, and don't forget to look back during the Leadership Development Seminar lesson 4 for some counseling tips, and that's going to go a long way in this process. So thank you very much.